Health, truth, hope. In a world where billions of people do not have a clue about the forces that control their health, these people go about their day in a life and death struggle, while minds that are calculating and unsympathetic make decisions that will affect their very lives. A new day begins. There are many questions, but few answers. But still there's hope. This is the big secret. Each year, millions of people die in the United States from chronic diseases, yet many of these deaths are preventable. Sure, we all know that smoking is bad for your health. As a matter of fact, it's probably no surprise that nearly 500,000 people die each year in the United States from smoking-related causes. That's 1 in every 5 deaths in the US. But what if I told you that you might be at an even greater risk of death? According to the Center for Disease Control, half of all adults in the United States have a chronic health condition. These are startling statistics, yet people go about their lives unaware of the things that affect their health. There are those who try to manipulate and influence factors that have a direct impact on your health. For these people, corporate profits are more important than your well-being. Have you ever wondered about the startling rise in chronic diseases over the past 20 years? We've all heard people say, "You used to not hear about all the diseases we have today." Were they here all along and we're just getting better at diagnosing them? Or are more people developing chronic conditions like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and stroke? In this documentary, we will take a look at several important events in history and note an interesting correlation in the rise of certain diseases. In some cases, we will provide a little background to make the information more meaningful. There is a lot of information and a lot of misinformation on most of what we're going to cover. Trust me, we will only scratch the surface on some of these issues. So why did we create this documentary? Our goal is to challenge the status quo and to start a conversation about healthcare and nutrition in the United States. You may be surprised by some of the information presented, but I encourage you to do your own research and to talk to others who do not have a financial interest in your well-being. Let's get started.
I know that sometimes things can seem that, man, how do I take a positive spin on the fact that we're being murdered?
I know this is depressing, but it's also very important.
I know, and it is. It's really depressing, but people need to know that stuff. You know, I grew up, I was never interested in nutrition. I didn't know anything about it. You know, I ate McDonald's all the time and microwave meals, and I mean, I had no idea. You know, I didn't care at all about nutrition. And I was in college. I was probably sitting there drinking a Coke and eating Cheez-Its, and I was taking a cell biology class. And so we're like learning about the cell and DNA replication, and I mean, it's just like fascinating. And the professor, you know, his area of research that he was doing was all about cancer. So that was kind of his emphasis in the class. So we're learning about cancer and apoptosis, P53, all of these different mechanisms the body has for basically protecting us against cancer. And as he's explaining all this stuff, I'm doing all this research, I had this little like aha moment or whatever about nutrition and processed foods, and I ended up writing my senior thesis paper, was on that topic. And so I was basically theorizing, you know, and I've talked about trans fats, I talked about partially hydrogenated oils, I talked about the lack of minerals in the soil depletion. I mean, I talked about all these different things, and at the time, it was my thesis. It was all theory. It was all like I was doing this research and kind of coming up with these ideas and saying that there's a link between processed foods and chronic disease. It was just really neat after I graduated seeing all of these things that I talked about in that paper start coming into the mainstream. And they're talking about trans fats, and they're talking, you know, all of this stuff that I had researched, high fructose corn syrup, was all becoming more widely accepted. And now, you know, 10 years later, there's people all over the United States and really all over the world, like you said, all kind of saying the same things. Even though we've never talked to each other, but we're all just kind of coming to the same conclusions based on looking at all the different things. So that in itself is very reaffirming, just that, so many different people are coming to these same conclusions. And because when I wrote that paper, I didn't, I didn't know if I was right or not. And I asked my professors, I was like, am I right? And they were like, actually, we're not allowed to tell you if you're right or not, if processed foods have a link to cancer and chronic disease. And I was like, what do you mean you're not allowed to tell me? And then of course now I kind of understand why they said that, but that was kind of my awakening or whatever, was learning about cancer and DNA damage and the things that cause DNA damage. And I went, oh, this probably isn't helping. Probably the last time I drank a Coke right then.